years, and it's for 785 Mountain Ranch Road across the street where CAL FIRE has their Tuolumne Calaveras Ranger Unit headquarters. And the agreement has been structured that for $1 a year that the county leases the land, of which all the buildings are state-owned that CAL FIRE has on the property, CAL FIRE gives us free use for Fowler Peak and Sierra Vista. And you'll remember a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the microwave projects, those are two existing towers that the Sheriff's Office uses low-band and high-band voice equipment. This is a different relationship in terms of long-term. If we do not execute a long-term lease agreement, then the cost to occupy the tower space would then be charged back to the county. On a market analysis of two towers, corporate-owned in the county, we found that the average between the two use of a private lease tower, corporate, would be somewhere around $24,000 plus. So there's a financial relationship between the continuation of the 785 Mountain Ranch Road county property to CAL FIRE and the continued use of Sierra Vista at Fowler Peak at no cost other than $1,600 per year for Sierra Vista, which is waived for the first year.
Are there any questions of Mr. Hawkins? Steve.
I'm curious on this property. I haven't really walked it, but I'm familiar with it. There's 7 acres altogether, and there's some buildings on it.
Correct.
What is the total out of that 7 acres? What's the current utilization? Are they using the entire 7, or is there some acreage that's undeveloped?
It's pretty much all used in its two levels. The bottom level is the engine bay, the dispatch center, right, the administrative headquarters, and then the upper section is a ground vault for diesel, a mechanics bay, and a warehouse, and then behind that is a smaller metal building that's for telecommunications for the state.
So there's no real acreage available?
Pretty much all the acreage is used.
All right, so we lease the whole thing as
Correct.
a result. All right, thanks.
Are there any other questions?
But the $1,600, that's waived the first year.
Correct.
And then it escalates over the period of this agreement.
Correct. That's correct.
Up to a total of $2,482 in the final 10th year.
That's correct. And those budgeted costs are reflected in the Sheriff's Office budget historically.
The $2,400 you're saying would be standard cost that you've assessed that as reasonable. Wouldn't it also be a standard cost for if we were to have everybody in a reciprocal way be paying normal fees, that there be some rental of this facility more than $1?
You mean use of the land? Remember, the facilities are state-owned.
Not the facility. I'm talking about the land itself. That at least
could be, if that's your pleasure.
Well, I want to make sure that there's a reciprocity between agencies. We've been, I think, properly. There's a public interest and there's a public use for this. We've been generous in our $1 arrangement. I want to make sure that the generosity is returned in the use of the facilities themselves. And sure, I don't know exactly what equitability would be between the two, but I certainly would not want to think of us as extreme in our generosity and others being less so.
When we approached this, we attempted to start a market analysis looking at that, but decided not to because all the buildings are state-owned, so it would be difficult to determine use based on a facility that we don't own, that another agency would own, even if the land were reverted. However, our fear is the operating costs of 2 towers. That could be immensely expensive. 2 towers could be at least $50,000 plus based on the current market value of Sierra Vista Tower that the Sheriff's Office leases for the new MDT program.
Mr. Thomas?
Well, I'd just like to point out that Clay has successfully negotiated a 20-fold increase in the lease rate. It used to be 5 cents a year, and now it's $1 a year. So.
Good job. Well, that settles my issue.
You had me worried there for a minute.
But that's true.
Yeah.
The previous lease was $1, and the duration of the lease was 20 years. So.
You want to give them a 10% commission fee?
Yeah, let's give them a commission on that.
There's other economic benefits, though, that we shouldn't overlook. One is our history with CAL FIRE and close proximity for large-scale fires, and we've used that immensely over the years in terms of staffing of the multi-agency coordinating group and also the use of CAL FIRE fire crews. Probably the largest project that they involved with us was in 2002 as a result of the Darby fire and the loss of the Utica flume. That was nearly entirely rebuilt with fire crews out of the Vallecito Conservation Camp, which was a huge economic benefit to the county, as well as the local economy with the staff that staffs the Ranger Unit headquarters.
Mr. Tuffanelli?
These costs for the equipment rental space on these towers, does this leave room, would this change if the Sheriff's Department wanted to put additional equipment on those towers, or does this stay in place regardless of that?
The towers are currently full with our equipment on both towers. So we're not looking to use the towers for additional equipment.
Okay.
Any other questions? Clay, I have one. I have a concern. I've been hearing for the last 3 years, plus or minus, that CAL FIRE is going to move the administration section over to Tuolumne. And now we're going into a lease till 2025. Is that CAL FIRE's commitment that they are going to be staying there? Or are they going to go to Tuolumne? And if they do, then does that leave that open for us? I really wasn't clear where the rumors start and where facts begin.
CAL FIRE has had, at least since I've been here, 22 years, a long-standing project that spoke of the headquarters unit moving to Tuolumne County, but that goes back at least 20 years. It did appear in the governor's budget a year ago, but was subsequently canceled. Given the economy, I don't know where that project will be long-term.
So what you're saying is we don't know. So they could decide in 2 months or 2 years to move out of that location and move to Tuolumne.
Possibly.
So then what would happen to that property where I didn't see anything where it would then revert to us?
Well,
and not the portion on the other side of the road.
Right.
But they have their dispatch, that little dispatch building there.
Correct.
And then this really nice building, maybe you can move health services.
There's one building to the left as you look at
Right.
the dispatch center straight ahead, and that would be the building with the staff that could potentially move to Tuolumne County. My understanding is the dispatch center would remain as it is. However, any agency could change their plans at the last minute. But again, we don't know if they're going to backfill that space with other functions, too.
So where is the conversation? They're not planning on moving? Is that what they're saying to you?
No, I'm told not within 5 years.
Not within 5 years?
My discussions with CAL FIRE 2 weeks ago. 3 to 5 years.
2 to 5?
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
More likely after 5 years is what I was told.
And who is it that you may have?
The Assistant Ranger Unit Chief.
Okay, so if it happens, then is there anything in the agreement on what happens to those facilities?
No,
No. So
not in this version before you.
So would we not want something in there?
But that presumes that the agency would vacate a building and not backfill it with other functions. I mean, we're presuming that they're just going to leave and there's nothing else left behind. I don't know. And we don't know that.
Marita, there is a page something or other, 3 of 11, there is an early termination. Either party has a right to terminate this lease by giving 90 days notice. So one of the concerns I had early on in the thing was you were giving another 2 5-year options, but it wasn't by mutual consent. It was only by the request of CAL FIRE. But as long as that early termination applies to the option period, which I'm assuming it does, then in 90 days, either party can get out of this. So obviously, if you...
And that was language that CAL FIRE wanted as well as council here.
I think the county should, I'd be leery of tying up that property for 25 years, not knowing what the future would hold for the county.
Right. But again, we just have to be aware there is a huge economic cost that we just have to keep our eye on in terms of tower space. And that will be key long-term as we develop communications in the county.
On that particular issue, if the value of that of the ground lease is $1 a year, and the CAL FIRE decides after 2 years to leave, would that open up the possibility that they may go to $50,000 a year?
Correct. Market value. Well, whatever the market value would be at the time. However, there's a distinction that we found in the market analysis of leasing private corporate towers. We found about $24,000 versus what's in the contract. CDF spoke between $2,000 and $5,500 per year per tower, if you notice, between Fowler Peak and Sierra Vista. So it's not the 24, but I don't know in the future what tower costs will be. Towers are at a premium everywhere.
Well, I recoil from the idea that we're placing a value of it at $1 a year, and then if they vacate, it suddenly could unilaterally we could be facing, like it's $24,000 a year. Why not make it $24,000 a year now? There may not be an answer to that, but
well, the other way to look at it too is we're paying $1 and getting $24,000 a year for the last almost 4 years too. There's two distinct ways we can look at this lease. It's very difficult, and that's why we're bringing it to you, just because of that.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments from the board at this time? Are there any questions or comments from the public? I'd like to bring it back.
Madam Chair, I'll move the item.
Okay.
I'll second.
That's good. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 14, discussion and possible action regarding the appointment to fill the district attorney's term, and also to direct the clerk to schedule an election to fill the office of district attorney. What is the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, it's my understanding that the Deputy District Attorney has been acting as the interim District Attorney since the death of Jeff Tuttle. It would be my recommendation that individual, help me with the name, Barbara Yu, that she be named the interim district attorney until the completion of the next regularly scheduled election.
So that would be for a year and a half instead of
regularly scheduled election.
And that's in 2012.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, I have another option that we appoint her as the district attorney to fill the balance of this term. The term starts again January 3, 2011, and then the regular scheduled election will be in, I believe, June 2012. So instead of being interim, that she will be the district attorney. Not an interim, not making her interim, making her the district attorney.
I think that's sort of semantics, but whatever. But she would be there as acting as the district attorney until the next regularly scheduled election, which is June of 2012. Is that the correct date?
Yes, June 5th, 2012. But it's not exactly semantics. The DA's office is an elective position, but under this circumstance, the board appoints that person. So the appointee is the district attorney.
Is it? Okay, then that's fine.
Okay. Are there any questions or clarification from the board? Are there any comments from the public on this?
Joe Kelly, in the concept of interim versus appointed, is there a difference in pay scale? And the determination of this kind of boggles my mind, having seen what we went through with the resignation of the previous assessor and where the next person in line was left as the interim rather than made appointed. Never did find out what the cause of that was. So I'm kind of concerned as to if you folks would express why you would be contemplating the appointment and what is the actual benefit over that, although what council just said kind of answered some of it, but I'm still concerned about the cost concept. Is there a differentiation from her position now to interim, and if it goes up to appointed, is there a difference?
There is no difference in compensation, whether it's an interim district attorney, acting district attorney, or district attorney. And under the government code, the board can just let her stay in the position until June 2012, which is the regular scheduled election, or we can appoint her to that position.
Okay, so her pay position remains the same now if she's appointed or interim?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Madam Chair, then I would move that the board appoint the current Deputy District Attorney, Barbara Yu, to the position of District Attorney until the next regularly scheduled election, which apparently is in June of 2012.
And then direct the county clerk to schedule an election in 2012.
That is the next regularly scheduled election. I think it thinks you will schedule it, but okay. If you want that, it doesn't matter.
Go ahead. I was going to second that motion. Go ahead.
Any further comment?
I've yet to draft a resolution, but I'd like to draft it so there's no question that you're appointing her to fill the current term and to fill the next term, the term that begins next year until the election.
Correct.
Is that, yes?
And the second
is...
separate minute order to directing the clerk to schedule it for place it on the ballot.
Correct.
Yes, put it on the ballot.
Thank you.
So one would be a resolution and one would be a minute order.
And I'm asking if the motion covers both of those items.
Yes, it does.
My second stands.
Just before we vote on this, did anybody ask Barbara if she wants the job?
I did. She said she hadn't changed her mind as of a few minutes ago.
She got a haircut for the occasion.
Isn't it interesting we say that about women and we don't say anything about men?
What?
I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you, Ms. District Attorney.
By the way, is that just for the historically minded, is this our first woman district attorney in the history of Calaveras County?
Well, as far as I know.
That's
Is that grounds for reconsideration?
Congratulations,
Congratulations, another barrier down.
I'd like to move to item 15, a resolution adopting the revised rules and regulations for on-site wastewater. We had a study session on this. Is there anything different, Mr. Moss?
One item, Brian Moss, Administrator, Environmental Management Agency, and since our study session, we sat down and noticed one error that we thought was an error, and it had to do with setback requirements for utility and road easements. We've modified that because the way we had it written, and it was a new section, would have made some parcels unbuildable. It would have been a 10-foot setback off of any utility or road easement, but sometimes those easements run along property lines, in which case it would have been a 10 feet from the outside edge of that easement, making sometimes setbacks as much as 30 feet inside of a property line would have been too much. What we did do is we modified it to say, treatment and disposal units shall not be placed in any easement unless otherwise authorized by and approved by said utility or otherwise authorized authority. And that means that you still can't put a septic system in an easement unless authorized or approved by that authority. And I'll pass that change out to the board. With that said, no other changes.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public?
Brian, I'm looking at page 35 of the document, the diagram.
Yes.
Is that an official term for this rod going down the center?
The aluminum welding rod?
You have to use an aluminum welding rod.
I would have to check with staff on that because that is from the original document. But I think that's a really good point. I see it from a Ferris standpoint.
No need to change it, that's fine.
Thank you.
I saw that and I wondered where it came from.
That came from 1991 or 92 when we originally adopted these requirements.
Very good.
Okay, no questions or comments from the public. Upon the board, will entertain a motion.
Madam, I would like to move this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Brian, I've
Thank you.
gotten lots of kudos from your department for their work on this.
Thank you.
And their outreach.
I'll make sure I get that message across.
So have I.
Thank you.
Good job.
I'd like to move to item 16. I'm going to ask the board to please keep it very concise. We have several items. We will do the closed sessions probably after lunch.
I do not have anything to bring before the board today, Madam Chair.
Mr. Walensky.
I've got a number of meetings and one communication to share. The communication involves a letter that I received from Dick Tuttle, Richard Tuttle, former judge, and I thought it was worth reading into the record just because it's unusual to get this kind of thing, and I think the department would appreciate it. It says, in the not-too-distant past, I've been critical of the building department, which at times seemed more interested in erecting roadblocks to the road, on the road to a building permit rather than trying to smooth the path for the applicant. So now it's only fair that I should say how much things have changed from the cheerful, friendly greeting at the counter, the offer to be of help in filling out the application, and the prompt and efficient inspection of our premises. True, the inspector found defects requiring him to ask us to fix them, but as soon as the corrective work was done the next morning, he gave his approval. Perhaps I was wrong in my excessive criticism in the past, but I'm certainly right now to express my appreciation of the way the department presently operates. Sincerely, Richard E. Tuttle. So, good news is always worth reading, and I hope somebody out there in the building department heard that because it really was a compliment to all of you. Now, as far as my schedule goes, it's a busy week. Today I have the Mental Health Advisory Board at 4 o'clock, and I'll be attending the school board meeting, which will be discussing the closure, again, of Railroad Flats School, or the potential closure of that school. Tomorrow morning I have the Motherlode Job Training Board at 10 a.m., and there's an all-staff meeting as well that I'll be attending in Sonora. On Friday I have First Five. That's the commission meeting from 9:30 to 11:30, and that's all I have to report.
Mr. Tuffanelli.
I have nothing to bring to the board.
Mr. Thomas.
Supervisor Toffanelli, are you, you're not going to go to that Delta meeting in Stockton tonight?
No. Are you?
I was hoping to carpool with you, so.
I'll I'll talk to you later about it. I have several places that I was going to try and attend. I guess I should bring up, I was going to try and attend. I have an item that needs to be discussed at the CUSD board meeting this evening. I also wanted to try and get by the city council meeting in Angels this evening. There's an item on their agenda that I wanted to be in attendance on. Delta College's board meeting, I think, is scheduled for 7 p.m. this evening. However, I've had a discussion with one of those board trustee members, and he assured me that my position on what they will be discussing tonight, he will bring forward and discuss. They're not voting on it. It's a study session. The next meeting is scheduled for a vote. I plan to attend that one.
I'll also be at that.
Okay, and the city council, I think, had to do with the Visitors Bureau?
The Visitors Bureau and the JPA.
Okay. All right. Madam Chair, the only board-appointed responsibility that I have this week is the Mountain County's Water Resources meeting at La Contenta on Friday morning. So that,
When did you say you were going to be at? Meeting you just said?
On Friday morning? No, the meeting, that's the Delta College board meeting where they're going to be voting on the subject of putting all of their and our money into Lodi rather than developing something in the county.
They made a promise.
Yes, this is an extraordinary betrayal of the promises made to the voters of this county and all the work that many departments and agencies here did to commit to getting the 500 students necessary. We export a lot of our students to their ADA, and we found the capacity to combine county trainings, which are already being held at great expense, could be held at a community college that had specific focus on a number of issues. We raised all of that. We showed that they could get 500 people. We had enormous outpouring of community support for this and agency support for it. They engaged us in considerable discussion about it and then appear to have moved in this completely opposite direction, which is very different than what the voters were promised when we were invited into this system. We are the only county that's divided, that I know of, between two community college districts. We have half the county under Columbia and half on Delta. If we're really going to be divided that way, then the same kind of commitment that Columbia is making to that portion of the county should be made by the Delta College. We're paying $2 million a year out of taxpayer money for something. And that's not to send our kids on a long commute. It was to get something local and specific to Calaveras County. So much more to be said on this as the next couple of months roll out.
Okay.
does it rise to being critical that somebody from the board go tonight?
I think it would be good for us to have an expression of we've certainly made a lot of presentations, but it's good to reiterate since they seem to have some form of amnesia going on.
Okay.
Are you willing to take on that responsibility?
I think that I should.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Steve. We should be there.
And I think I'm hoping that he has the authority to speak for all of us in this regard, that we expect local them to have a local presence sometime before the next 25 years.
How about 25 months?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll be at Angels Camp City Council tonight. I will be in Sacramento Thursday for a CSAC board meeting. I will be at Bret Harte High School Thursday night for a wagon trail meeting. And I will be in Arnold and Hermit Valley on Saturday for the National Scenic Byway celebration, and hopefully on Sunday at Habitat for Humanity. Ms. Boyce?
Wait a minute, hold it. Where were you last Saturday?
Oh, hey, what's the outcome?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, this is...
I want you to know Supervisor Tuffanelli came in third in the money in hatchet throwing. Is it Apache? Axe.
Axe throwing.
Axe throwing.
The lumberjack.
And lumber at the logging museum, he came, in fact, there was a throw-off
A throw-up? Is there a throw-up?
for second.
I'm still here, so.
For second place. He really did a good job.
Nice. How do you guys do in the saw thing?
We came in third.
We did.
All right, in the money as well.
We got
In the
mine.
money, and we donated
How many
it to White
entries,
Pine
just for the
Sport.
record, how many entries were there in that particular?
That many.
Doesn't matter, we were third.
We were third.
All right.
And I want to bring up that this year, mark it on your calendars, this year, Marita actually threw the axe and hit the target, and it stuck. So she did get some points this year.
That's right. I tied for last. Yeah, it was fun. I appreciate
And the
Gary
applause was
coming.
enormous.
I appreciate Gary coming up to Arnold for that event.
No problem.
Ms.
I enjoyed
Boyce,
myself.
I don't have anything to report today.
Mr. Jones.
Nothing for me.
No
Okay.
budget? No budget
There is no
agreement?
state budget.
There is
There
none.
continues to be no state budget.
There's a
The
surprise.
legislature is on recess. Depending upon who you talk to, the governor has said he doesn't think it's necessary for him to call a special session, although he might call a special session, so there you go.
Depends on what Maria wants.
There's some speculation that there won't be a budget until after this election. Is that possible in your view?
It is possible. Depending upon who you talk to, the governor thinks we're close. When I speak to people who work in the building, depending upon who you talk to, they don't think they're close. So we really are getting very mixed messages. I think, we are very fortunate that we are one of the counties that have the cash deferral because of our population size, which is critical, but many of the counties that are subject to that cash deferral are now looking at another couple of months whereby they thought they'd get money in September, now they may not get it to November, and it's really critical. So I think the pressure is definitely on for the legislature to solve the budget problem, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of political will at the moment.
And doesn't the state move to vouchers? I thought it was September, October.
September, October, yeah. The state controller has said he'll be moving to IOUs within the next few weeks. And you read 3 to 6 weeks. It depends on the cash flow.
Normally, that seems to trigger resolution, but I wonder about this year.
This is the oddest year I've ever seen in my many years in public service on the state budget.
Nobody wants to take the political risk in safe districts to make the compromises necessary.
That's
During
it.
this critical election year, that's correct.
It seems to be tied again to pension reform and then cuts versus tax increases.
I'd like to move to item 17. Mr. Moss. Mitchell Mill.
Mitchell Mill, may I take a couple of minutes to set up? And the presentation will be maybe about 10 minutes.
You make it 9 and it's yours.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Thank
okay, we'll recess for
Do
2
you
minutes.
want to handle another subject while he does? Looks like there's some
good
things we
idea.
could move through fairly quickly.
Okay, I'd like to, now, Francine's not here, but I'd like to move to item 20, discussion possible action approving an MOU with IHSS. I need to adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the public authority. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this? Are there any questions or comments from the public on this? I'll bring it back to the public authority.
I would make the motion to pass a resolution approving the MOU.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 21, a resolution approving changes consistent with the new contract with the Service Employees International Local 1021 for appointed department heads, mid-management, professional, supervisory, and confidential groups. Is there any questions or comments from the board on this? Are there any questions or comments from the public on this?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Second from Supervisor Tuffanelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Thank you. I'll move to item 22, introduction of an ordinance approving changes consistent with the new contract for SEI Local 1021 for elected officials. Are there any? Sorry, Francine, we did make a change. We seem to be doing okay, but stay there. So this is, I can take 22 and 23 together because it's for the Board of Supervisors and for elected officials. Are there any questions or comments on this? Are there any questions or comments from the public? May I have a motion on item 22, 23?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, do we need a waiver of reading on this since it's the introduction of the
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, let's include waiver of reading in that. My second holds as...
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. On both of them, Carol, a waiver of reading on 22, 23. Thank you, Tom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. And let's move, so we're here. A resolution approving a revised and extended contract with SEIU Local 1021 to August 31, 2011. Are there any questions or comments from the board on this? Any questions or comments from the public? A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Francine, please thank the groups
For all of us.
for, I know it was a difficult negotiations, and I think the board appreciates their participation in helping the county out. Yeah.
I have a comment on this as well. I appreciated the comment, which was the first under public comment today, which refuted the notion that this board would delay in any way negotiations for political reasons. Much as we love Russ, that would not be something that would either be proper or even legal for that matter, would violate labor law. We have proceeded in good faith to try to resolve agreements. They are resolved well before the election, and I hope that that particular rumor, it's too bad we can't resolve all the rumors going out there, but this one has been, the lie has been put to that. I hope that at least somebody in the press will do some kind of accountability to the nonsense that comes up from time to time before this board, so that damage in labor relations is at least exclusively our domain to do, rather than people kind of messing it up out there. And it certainly wasn't ever done with a political thought in mind on the part of any of us, which I find to be repulsive and disgusting.
I took the comment a couple of weeks ago as being directed directly at me, that I was the one that was singularly holding up the negotiations.
Well, that is mathematically incorrect and impossible, and it strikes me that it takes three of us to accomplish anything like a delay, but that was affording you way too much power and authority in my mind. But thank you for not exercising it in the way that they had
Thank you for that.
granted.
Those comments, Steve. I'd like to move back to item 17. Mr. Mullins.
Thank you. It's actually my pleasure to come before the board today and give you a final report on the Mitchell Mill illegal disposal site. It's been in our inventory for solid waste enforcement now for a number of years. I'm going to pass these out. As you can see, Tom Garcia is joining me today because it was his agency that worked with us to resolve this issue. The board's well aware that the Mitchell Mill legal disposal site, which is situated, or was situated, in a canyon off Mitchell Mill Road in District 2, was used historically to dispose of solid waste generated from the communities of Railroad Flat, West Point, and Willoughbyville, respectively. And this is not an unfamiliar site to the board. The bulk of the legal disposal activity occurred in between the mid-1950s through the early 1960s. Some illegal disposal had been noted as occurring, continuing to occur as the site remained an attractive nuisance. And that's the biggest problem with something like this. You see these old car bodies that were removed by code compliance, by the way. And then you have a nice new refrigerator, or semi-new refrigerator, when you put it next to a 1940s, 1950s vehicle. So continue to be an attractive nuisance. I'm sure that Supervisor Walensky would attest to that. Some of you may recognize this gentleman here. He worked with the OES department and actually
I
headed it up.
recognize the head.
Actually, that, of course, is Clay Hawkins out there doing some sampling. Environmental Health, County OES, what used to be the Integrated Waste Management Board, now Cal Recycle, sampled for soil contaminants, performed some gas screening and radiological survey on May 5th, 2006. You'll notice that the white material there indeed is not solid waste, but appears to be snow. As the board is also well aware, we have a GIS program, a GPS program that we have implemented in environmental health. You have seen this slide before, especially on the 3D analyst. This was our GIS person at the time, Henning Schreiber, actually out there taking those readings to create this map. Amongst where the sample, you can see the sampling sites, there's a number 6 there. There were multiple sites collected. So this gave us an idea as to approximate waste volume by surveying the perimeter of the site, estimating the depth of the material. So a little bit of history here is provided through adoption of Board Resolution 089. Grant funding was secured through Cal Recycle in the amount of $50,000. After issuing an RFP in 2009, we received several bids, in this case 7, of which the lowest was for $49,950. After receipt of the bids, we were notified, actually by Public Works staff, that there may be additional waste under approximately 450 cubic yards of dirt, what we call overburden. That actually had the effect of raising the cost of the project from the $49,950 to another $45,000, clearly outside of the realm of the grant availability, and that's why we, of course, reported to the board last time. So as a result of this unanticipated increase in cost, Environmental Health worked hand in hand with Public Works staff to find an in-house solution, resulting in certainly the successful cleanup and remediation of this site. I thought this was rather clever. Public Works hired CAL FIRE, who utilized hand crews to remove and stockpile debris for the recycling and proper disposal. This is something that Tom's department has to take credit for. I had never seen anything quite like it. What you're seeing there is a 55-gallon drum that's been hollowed out on skids. And what they would do is they would go ahead and release this on a cable down the slope into the area they're working. The crews hand-picked through the solid waste and the debris. They would load that drum up, and then they would pull it up with either a winch or by tying it to a bumper of a vehicle and backing up and running it through a pulley. So here's another photo of that when you see the actual drum at the site. They had several of them going at a time. What they'd do is they'd take this drum, they'd empty it into the backhoe would go over and empty it into a bin for either A, disposal, or B, recycling. Kind of a clever little operation. This is what it actually resulted in looking like. In the past, as you know, this was all full of waste, this was all waste. This is the area here where we had approximately 450 cubic yards of dirt placed over waste. What had happened is once the site had been cleaned up, Public Works crew went in here, removed this waste, or removed the overburden, remove the waste underneath it, and then replace the overburden on top. So at this point, I guess at this point, the site would be stabilized. I think you're still looking at hydroseeding, right?
Correct. We're looking at some long-term soil stabilization for that, which includes hydroseeding. Not quite finished with the site. But as far as the refuse pickup, yes, we are.
This is what it looked like as of last Friday. The grant actually is allowing us to pay for the fencing as well. Right now, what you're seeing is a cyclone fence there. It hasn't been stretched yet. I think as of today, it probably is. But as of Friday, they just got the posts up and they put the fencing in to prevent further dumping on the site. So it was kind of interesting how this happened, because when I wrote the grant initially, I stated we wanted fencing. I really didn't specify as to whether it would be temporary fencing, so when they were cleaning up the site versus permanent fencing, we didn't specify. The grant manager at first was going to say no, and then she said, oh, I noticed you put a cost in there for fencing. So fortunately for us, the grant is taking care of that. The results of this are very obvious. It's resulted in removing the physical hazards associated with an open disposal site. Certainly, along with the associated traffic nuisance, if there's one piece of debris down the hill, I might as well throw mine down with it. It's easier than pulling the other one up and taking it to the transfer station. So the bottom line is we've taken care of a lot of issues with one swipe here, including preventing or limiting previous contamination threats that we're looking for, and even to groundwater supplies. The interesting thing here, you'll notice that we're saying restoring it to the area to silviculture practices. That's how we got the Palmer Ranch grant, through the use of trees. We said, well, silviculture in the area, they harvest trees. That's what allowed us to actually qualify for the farm and ranch end of the grant. Again, looking down in a swale, this was full of, when you saw the vehicles before, these were where the vehicles were. So there's a little bit of a before, a little bit of an after shot to give you an idea as to where we've come and how we've accomplished this. And I'm going to turn it over to Tom to make a couple comments.
Just like to state the waste that we brought up. Preliminary counts are about 125 yards of metal, 15 yards of glass, 102 tires, and 56.
That's nothing for District 2. That's small pickings.
And 56 appliances. Everything that was recyclable went to the recycle facilities, and I believe there was also several yards of actual garbage that went out to the Rock Creek landfill. This was a great partnering with environmental health to use limited resources and try to identify how to best serve the residents of the county by combining our efforts, using our crews, using their crews, and outside agencies to accomplish something that couldn't be done otherwise. And I'd like to thank Brian for allowing us to proceed on this. It was a great partnership.
Actually, it worked out very well. And finally, with all that said, I would like to make one comment, and that is, no public works director will, invent something or use something without actually testing it first. So in this case, we have a picture of the public works director. As you notice, he is testing his invention.
I look like Kim Jong-il.
Good was this. Sorry about that.
Is he on his way up or down?
Actually, I don't know if that's pre-inspection or after inspection, after surveying the solid waste at the bottom of the site. Maybe you can tell us. Do you remember? You don't know comment? Okay. Anyway.
Wait a minute. Is that our entry in the Olympic bobsled competition?
It's almost like the Jamaican bobsled team, but low tech.
I can't discourage this because really it's kind of a Cal OSHA issue. But anyway, again, no good public works director would not test something himself firsthand. So I just wanted to share that with the board. Anyway, any questions regarding Mitchell Mill and the closure of that?
I think you all deserve a lot of credit for your partnership and for what you've accomplished, all under the $50,000.
All under the $50,000.
Would that qualify as Yankee ingenuity?
Hey, Jeannie, maybe we should submit this to CSAC for
Yeah, this is a good example.
Innovation.
innovation. Steve, did you have some comment?
Yes, I'd like to just add a couple of things. This came to my attention through a code compliance enforcement action to the owners of that property, who, by the way, had no visible sources of income or resources. It was estimated at the time that it might cost up to $500,000 to accomplish this. And the people were being held liable until they brought a shoebox full of complaints over the last 70 years that involved the families who owned it complaining that the county was dumping stuff there. And then it came to find out that even within the last couple of years, we had continued to dump animal carcasses and other things over there. So while some of this was illegal dumping on the part of the private sector, at least some portion of it was indicated that we had a responsibility. At that point, the department really stepped up and was innovative. And the idea that Environmental Health, Public Works, OES, and CAL FIRE would all come together to make this a $50,000 or $45,000 project from a $500,000 project and do all this in-kind support for each other is really a harbinger of future configurations to accomplish things that we can't do individually as departments alone. And so this was a great example of that. My hope is that it will get some attention out there because it is government working in the best possible way together for a good outcome.
So what about Camp 9 Road?
Well, as far as what made this site unique was the fact that the owners did not dump it. We'd have to look at Camp 9, and who owns that property? Is that Department of Interior? Do we know?
Several places. You can ask Tom. I mean, I've been down there a lot, and there's a lot of dumping that goes on in the 9 miles. Part of it's probably PG&E, some of it's private, some of it could be the Bureau, but I mean, it's one that occasionally the county's gone out and pulled things out. Since you have such a team going, you might want to consider looking at Camp 9 Road since you rehearsed at Mitchell Mill.
Yeah, let's franchise this.
We can look at that.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public?
And one last comment, and that would be the other thing that Tom's department is doing is he's posting signs on that fencing. Is that correct?
We're posting signs showing a map to the Wilsonville transfer station.
Oh, very good. Very good. Okay, this is not an action item, it's information only. Tom, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay, this meeting stands adjourned, and we will go into closed session after lunch.